that we are recording the session as normal, and that will be available to share on the intranet afterwards. So I can see somebody's pressed record. Thank you. We'll have questions and comments in the chat as normal, and we will collate everything at the end of the Muddle, and if we can answer them, we will, and if not, we'll come back to you with the answers at a later date. Today is Independence Day, so this is a day when Americans come together on July the 4th to celebrate the nation's birthday and their Independence Day. So happy Independence Day to any Americans that we have in the Trust. And it's also National Barbecue Spare Ribs Day today. So I know it's not really a barbecue weather. I was just having a glance out of my window there, but maybe this evening you can go out and cook up some ribs to commemorate National Barbecue Spare Ribs Day. So I'm going to start with the highlights from the tactical meeting on Friday. So that's where we get all of our key and core messages around what's happening across the Trust and that apply to the Children's Hospital. So Julian said that we'd obviously had another very busy week, and certainly we felt that in the Children's Hospital last week as well. We know that the COVID numbers are increasing. And again, we're keeping our eye on that, both in terms of staff sickness and absenteeism, and also positive cases that we're seeing within the bed base. There's been a lot of fantastic work around our elective recovery programme. The 104-week position at the end of June is looking really good, and certainly it is for the Children's Hospital. I'm sure Suzanne will update us on that a little bit later. The national team visited the LGI ED this week, and they were really impressed, and that was also talked about at the board timeout this week. From a COVID perspective, there's 90 adult COVID inpatients, there's 0 in critical care, and at the moment there's just 1 COVID ward, which is J16. And what they're trying to do in adults is have patients in side rooms within the CSUs rather than opening up cohorted COVID wards. So we'll just keep an eye on that position to see whether that approach changes as the numbers start to rise. But presentations are predominantly at the moment being seen in the over 65s, and they're not seeing a terribly large volume, but beginning to see some again just creep back into the bed bases. And as we know, that we have always got plans behind us if we need to activate those, and the plan would be to increase the number of COVID wards and start to pull patients out of side rooms on the adult side. That would be in children's, our plans would remain the same, to use our side room capacity to isolate. From an IPC perspective, we've got a nosocomial rate of 17.1%, which is 12 patients, and all of the new latest COVID IPC principles you can find in last week's bulletin. But the highlights are that face masks in clinical areas and within 1 metre of a patient, but you do no longer require them in office environments, which was a question that was asked last week, and we were waiting for the bulletin to come out on Thursday to be able to share that officially. So as of today, it's masks off in office environments. And in terms of PPE, gloves, eye protection and aprons are no longer for universal use, so you'll be selecting the correct PPE for the situation as we would have prior to COVID. And just to give you an update on the pathology new build, the new lab at St James's will be bringing together services of blood sciences, microbiology, specialist lab medicine and transplant immunology under one roof, and it's on track to open in autumn 2023. So moving on just to the operational pressures, I think last week's pressures are similar really to this week's pressures in terms of what we're facing. So we are seeing unusually high numbers of patients, paediatric patients and young people requiring our care. So we are currently looking at our surge capacity and where we're going to open extra beds and how we're going to wrap a workforce around that to support that. So if we've just hit the point after a really tricky weekend that we are going to have to start to look at different areas and places that we can surge our bed numbers into. So just be mindful around recognising patients early on for discharge. If they can be discharged tomorrow, why can't we get them home today? Making sure that our EDANs are in check and ready well ahead of discharge where possible. Colin and myself will be doing some rounds this afternoon across the ward areas, just to sort of talk to staff and see what support people really need in terms of on the ground support. But please do escalate early if you've got any patients in the bed base that could be repatriated to other hospitals. Again, please flag them up to the matron of the day, myself or Suzanne, so that we can begin to escalate and support getting those patients back to where they need to be. So I know it's really tricky. Crit care is pressured. We know that neonates are pressured. The CAT unit's particularly pressured at the moment as well. And we know that we've got a lot of our ward areas running on stop the line ratios from a nursing perspective. So I know that we'll get through it. We've got through it in the past, working in the Leeds way and supporting each other. But please do reach out, whatever help or support you need. Please escalate early, and we can wrap ourselves around that and hopefully help to get everybody into a better position moving into the rest of the week. So I'm now going to hand over to Suzanne for the financial position.
Thanks, Laura. So, as I spoke to you all last week about the mitigation plan that had been written by the executive directors and the different elements of that to try and address the gap that we've got in funding. In terms of a children's hospital, I'm meeting after this with our accountant to go through the latest financial position, but we know that we've got a gap of about 1.2 million, so we're working through that. The messages I wanted to give everyone this week is that we, as Laura mentioned, as an organisation, we've really brought down the number of patients that's waiting 104 weeks plus for their elective procedures. And as a children's hospital, we went into July with just 2 patients that had been waiting over 104 weeks for their operation, and they were offered dates in June, but it was patient choice that they chose not to accept those, and we're having those within July. But that's still patients waiting 2 years for an operation, which is entirely unacceptable. So we continue to reduce this number as quickly as we possibly can to get back to pre-pandemic levels. It will take about a year for us to get there, but I still think we can do significant step change in the amount of time that people are waiting, and we endeavour to do that. It all links in through with the elective recovery monies, which is the biggest risk financially for the organisation. So essentially, for us to get as much elective recovery monies as we can, we need to hit the targets that have been set to us, which is essentially doing 104% of activity this year compared to 1920. So if in 1920 we did 100 operations, we need to do 104 in 22-23. As a children's hospital, we're doing really well. So for an average for April, May and June, we're about 103% for those elective operations, and we've got some additional theatre capacity that's just come back on board. So I think we'll be fine with that. It also applies 104% to new outpatient attendances, and we're currently sitting around 98-99%. So we're working with the teams to work that through to see if we can increase that capacity at all. At the same point as we're trying to achieve the reduction in follow-ups of 25%. And that's tricky because we know we've got a lot of patients who have a backlog of follow-ups. I want to give the absolute assurance we are not seeing patients for follow-up who need follow-up. We will absolutely do that. We are not in the business of hitting a target and missing the point. Children that need to be seen will be seen, and we'll put in any mitigation and efforts we possibly can to reduce those waits for those follow-up patients. But what we must also do, and what we're equally committed to do, is not bring patients back for follow-up who do not need to clinically come back for a follow-up appointment. So there's a range of all kinds of things that are happening through the transformation board, such as advice and guidance, the patient-initiated follow-up waiting list, just an administration validation of lists because they're not as tidy as we would like to be, and sometimes children are brought back for follow-up appointments who should have been discharged, so that kind of thing. So working through all of that, but the take-home message really for everybody today is that we need to hit these activity targets of 104% to be able to release as much elective recovery money as possible. And the more of that we get, the more likely we are to achieve financial balance and therefore do the really good stuff, the stuff that we did last year in terms of innovation and service development. So we just need to be pushing through that. having said all that, as Laura said, the operational pressures are working against us at the minute, but we'll work together to do what we want to do. But essentially, it's keeping our services and the offer to our patients the safest and highest quality experience that we possibly can, and no target's going to impact on that whatsoever. We give you our solemn bow on that. And then waste reduction, moving into that. So as we know, we've got our £2.2 million waste reduction target for this year. So we are doing great guns on that, and we've had a few more come through last week, which we need to assess and put through before the final scores on the doors. But again, just a plea to everybody to continue. No scheme or idea is too small or too complicated or too complex. So anything at all, please. If we just, if we had 100 people do a small scheme for £1,000, that's £100,000, and that's a big chunk off. So please do send any ideas through to Kirsty and to Liz. And one of the things that I just wanted to go through was one of the suggestions that's come through from Gemma Kierchuk, one of our service managers. We were talking about, and it fits in with one of the mitigation plans that are in place for the financial plan, about not spending as much on our non-paid budgets, essentially, for non-essential items. And the idea is that we have some kind of free cycle within the children's hospital. So if you've got a filing cabinet, you've got a chair, you've got a desk that you no longer need, then that's offered up to the staff within the children's hospital to see if anyone can use that. And if not, then it's offered up to the trust. There is a trust talk pack page about people giving up things that they no longer require. But it'd be nice if we could reuse them within the children's hospital before we get there. So we're just working through what then, forum is it best to share those things. Probably the buzz, there'll be a bit in the buzz, a section in the buzz about that. So if anyone has any ideas about that or anything, again, if you can contact Liz Smith or Kirsty Bray, then that would be wonderful. And we'll take that forward, because I think we all have bits and pieces that are just lying around that other people could find very useful and that are just cluttering up. So let's get that going in the children's hospital. Thanks, Laura.
Thanks, Suzanne. So just moving on to some lessons learned, and I just wanted to share some lessons learned from a recent cluster that we're investigating around MRSA transmission. And what I'd like to just sort of cite people on really is around appropriately source isolating patients within 2 hours, which is the KPI and the target that we work to when we realise that a patient has something that requires them to be source isolated. And often there are times, particularly at the moment when we're so pressured, when we're not able to meet that time frame of 2 hours. And then what do we do beyond the 2 hours mark if we're still not able to isolate appropriately? And so just a reminder really as a lessons learned, that if we're not able to achieve that within 2 hours, there has to be an escalation either to the matron for the clinical area, if that's within normal working hours, or it will go through to the clinical site matron out of hours to make sure that we can appropriately place the patient. If either the matron or the clinical site manager, the CSM, isn't able to accommodate the patient, then it has to be escalated either to the Children's Hospital Management team in hours, or out of hours it would be the on-call team, and they would link in the consultant microbiologist on call to help us to make the decision around which patients is the greatest risk to not be isolated. And so there's a clearly defined protocol and process that supports that within the escalation procedure for inability to isolate within 2 hours. So that's just a reminder really to everybody that if you are struggling to isolate a patient, that there is a pathway there to support you, and the end stop to that is actually linking in the microbiologist to help you to make those decisions. So just some guidance and pointers around the resources that we've got out there to help. And then I am going to hand over. Is Emma Guy on to share some success with us?
Yeah, hi, morning team. Hopefully you can hear me okay. So yes, we were just wanting to share the results from the Junior Doctor Awards that were held last week. Dr. Andy Brooks, one of our junior doctors, who's been amazing at the moment in his role as Chief Registrar, but also very integral in the Junior Doctors Forum and within the Discharge Collaborative, won the Junior Doctor Award for Children's for the area of leadership. So I think he was the only junior doctor from Children's to win an award, but well done, Andy, and just wanted to celebrate some good news. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Emma. Is Andy on, or is he? No. Oh,
I don't know whether he's at work today. I haven't seen him actually, but yeah, he's very pleased. He's obviously very humble, is Andy, but he's very pleased and very proud. So well done, Andy.
Right. So the challenge is for everybody on this call right now to send Andy an email of congratulations and fill up his inbox with messages of congratulations. Thanks, Emma. That's brilliant. I'm sure everybody that's worked with Andy will know what an amazing asset he is for the Children's Hospital. So that's really great for that to be recognised formally. So have we got any questions in the chat, Ed? I don't think we've got any other business for today.
No, I think questions have largely been answered. There's one from Alison Conyers for Suzanne, but I think Suzanne you might want to pick that one up separately.
Let me have a look.
I think it's just for you.
Yeah, I will do. Thanks, Alison.
And there's a question just popped in from Catherine Penrose that I've not read yet. Can you see that one, Laura?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I mean, we can pick that up offline if you want, Catherine, in terms of the staff and etc. I don't know whether that relates to the incentive staff. So the Imagine incentive staff are signing up for shifts. That means that they would be diverted elsewhere within the Children's Hospital. But yeah, staff booked for Quick Care would stay within Quick Care unless you were over safe numbers, if you like, and then they would be deployed elsewhere. That's our normal practice.
Just basically, if we're going to take on additional patients, so let's patients go to theatre with the promise of staff, then I think it's right that those staff are delivered to us, and that the threat of removing those staff and take them elsewhere does not come later in the day when it's a fait accompli that those patients are going to come to us, which happened recently when I was in service. So we had, you know, an hour and a half with nobody to look after the patient. But somebody is going to come out and help, you know, who shouldn't be there, etc. But it isn't fair to promise something and we then not deliver, essentially, because that breeds bad feeling and then we don't trust you. So I think that it's about trust and everybody working together. So if, you know, I don't think that can happen again.
Okay, I'll pick that up with Donna, Catherine, and I'm happy to link you in just to understand what happened there.
I will pick up Alison's question here because it'll be useful for everyone. So this is about, Alison was asking, there's a patient who's an autistic child who's chosen or asked can they have surgery during the summer holidays, and what happens then to their clock. So by the rules, letter of the law, if anybody says that they're unavailable for a period of 3 weeks or more, the letter of the law is that they get referred back to their GP, but we don't do that within Children's. What we do is put them on an active monitoring list, and then the time period, so as soon as the school holidays in this instance would start, we'd get them dated in the school holiday so that they're not penalised, but that at the same time they're not then referred back to the GP to start that journey again. So that's what we do in that instance. So there's no penalised, they're not penalised for the length of wait, and we try and adhere to their needs and requirements as much as we possibly can. Thanks, Ed. Laura.
Thanks a lot, Laura. Can I just do one tiny bit of AOB?
Yes, you can, yeah.
So just really quickly, but it's admin really, but I've just come to my attention that not everyone has got this meeting in their calendars now. It's been going a while. So just if you are a regular attendee for this meeting, just please look out for what I'm going to do is probably I'll have to cancel one set of meetings and put in a new set. They're exactly the same, all the same information, same agenda, same people. But just if you see that in your calendar, please accept the new one that comes out and we'll carry on as normal. The Muddle isn't going anywhere, don't worry.
Lovely. Do we delete the existing one then?
I should be able to do that for you. So it should get deleted when I cancel it. But just look out for it coming up.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. That's brilliant. Okay, thanks so much, everybody, for your hard work. I know it's really, really tricky at the moment, but hopefully we'll get some good plans in place for the rest of the week and it'll feel a bit easier. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good week.
Thanks, Laura.
Bye.
Thank you.